Welcome to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors. Dr. Allen chats with successful investors exploring their journey from setback to triumph. Through this window, we glimpse the truths that inspire our guests to invest abundantly and flourish in all areas of life. And now your host, Dr. Allen.
Welcome, viewers and listeners. Thank you for tuning in to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. My guest today is a principal of Mesos Capital. He has a master's in information networking and computer sciences from Carnegie Mellon University. He has bought and invested in properties in 5 different states and internationally. He excels at finding value propositions and has successfully built a portfolio which is cash flowing in the double digits. He co-founded the multifamily mastermind of New York City Group. He was recently a panelist at the Best Ever Conference in Denver, Colorado. Welcome, Pancham Gupta.
Hi, Alan. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, and I'm so glad you could be with us today. So my first question is, what are 3 good things that have happened to you in the last 24 hours?
No, that's a great question. Actually, never been asked that on a live show, but I would say that for 3 things that have happened to me in the last 24 hours that I'm really proud of is that given the situation that we are in, staying home and spending time with the kids and family, I would say has been the number one thing. Like we have created a routine and we try to follow that routine and, so being able to follow that is one good thing. Number 2, I would say, is the book that I'm reading, which is The Influence by Robert Cialdini. That I reached a point on that book where I got an aha moment, and that was pretty good this morning. And the final thing I would say is that we are in the middle of a capital raise for one of our deals, and we got very close to our full commitment in the last 24 hours. So that's the third good thing. So
wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, can you share with us a little bit about that routine that you've been able to settle into with your family?
Sure. Before we were all home, I created a routine which is from that book Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, right, where he says that do these 6 things, and he gave it an acronym of SAVERS, SAVERS. So I try to do that every morning where I go through the routine. It's 1-hour routine where I have meditation, affirmations, visualization, and exercise, reading, and scribing. I don't do scribing, but I try to do all the other things. So that was something that I was trying to do even before every one of us was home. And now what we have added, like me and my wife, we decided that we would do get our kids involved and do the exercise together in the morning.
Oh, cool.
And, even though it's not like it's very little, it's like 10 minutes, but it gets everyone together.
Wonderful.
And so that's been very, very useful, I would say.
Well, what do the kids think and feel about that routine?
No, they absolutely love it. My little one, who's like 3.5 years old, he is up in the morning and says, "Oh, we have to do exercise." So,
well, wonderful. How many children do you have?
I have 2 kids.
2 kids. Okay. How old's the oldest?
The older one is 9 years, and the younger one is 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
A big gap between the 2 there.
Yeah.
Well, you also had said that you had an aha moment. I love aha moments. Can you share what that aha moment was?
Yeah, I mean, I can, but it's, I think what my interpretation of what it was versus what it's in the book is, it's kind of very, I don't know if I can articulate it in that way, but I'll try. So one of the things, it's a book called Influence. And, this guy is very famous in like talking about how to be persuasive or how to get the things that you want to get done,
Mhm.
right? So one thing he says that they did an experiment where they were standing in a line, like in a library where people were standing in a line,
Mm.
and they had to get a printer, like people had to get you know get their documents printed,
Uh-huh.
right? And the line was long, and there was this guy who really wanted to get pages printed. So they did experiment. They had two groups. One group said, the guy goes and says, you know what, I'm going to ask the person in front of me, hey, I really need to get the pages printed, can I just skip the line,
Mhm.
right? So that was the first group. The second group was, hey, I really need to get these 5 pages printed, can I skip the line because blah blah blah, whatever the
Uh-huh.
reason is, right? So the second group had much higher conversion rate.
Hmm.
Now that's not the aha moment. The aha moment is this. So in the second group, what you said after because actually did not matter at all.
Hmm.
So even if you said, hey, I want to get 5 pages printed because I have to get 5 pages printed, okay, the success rate was much higher even for that group versus the group where you did not have any reason.
Hmm.
So like, it's again, it's a very little thing, but it's very like, I felt it was pretty big, and I don't know if I articulated it the way it was written in the book, but that was pretty good, I felt.
No, I don't think aha moments are ever little things. I think they're critical to our success and our well-being. So thanks for sharing that. Interesting insight there. So how are you going to apply that to your life?
That's a good question. It happened in last 24 hours, so I'm not sure. But I would say that anytime I'm asking for something, I would actually give a reasoning behind it. And I'll tell
Uh-huh.
you this: that my little one, who's 3.5, we were talking about him, and
Right.
me and my wife actually laugh about it. But when I asked him, like, why did you break this?
Hmm.
He would say, "Oh, I broke this because I wanted to break it." So, and we would be fine, and we would laugh and all that stuff. So, but if you really think about it, as a kid, a little kid who's 3.5 has no idea about the world and all that, and he's
Hmm.
doing the same thing. So, yeah, my takeaway is that I would start adding why and because
My.
after anything I ask or do.
Yeah, I hadn't really given that a whole lot of thought, but as you're talking about it, it just made me think of working with my students. I still teach psychology,
Mhm.
and that makes a big difference for them when I'm making assignments. If there actually is a purpose, and particularly if it's a purpose that benefits them. But as you were talking, as I was also thinking, I work with horses a lot too, and it's amazing that even horses are so much more compliant if they can see a purpose in what you're asking of them, and they become instantaneously compliant if it has meaning to them. So yeah, terrific insight. Appreciate you sharing that.
No problem.
So Robert Frost penned this some time ago. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all of the difference. So, can you please share with us a major crossroad in your life that has made all the difference for you?
Sure, I will talk about. So, I originally am from India. That's where I was born in and
Hmm.
brought up in. And, my entire family, including my, extended family, my cousins, and everyone, they all are into, they're all small business owners. They are kind of like entrepreneurs back in India.
Oh, wow.
And me growing up, I always was fascinated with computers and I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I also was very fascinated by the higher education and really uh, learning, going further in the computer science field. So
Mm-hmm.
I left the country and I came to the US to do my master's in computer science from
Mm-hmm.
Carnegie Mellon. And so I would say that's one decision that has had a huge impact on my life,
Mm-hmm.
where moving like countries where no
Right.
one in my family has ever done,
Oh,
like
wow.
so
So
it
you
was a
didn't
pretty
have
big leap.
aunts or uncles, or you just came here all on your own and by yourself?
Yeah, so I do
Wow.
have one of my aunts in Canada, but
Mm.
other than that, like I had no one in the US, and still to date, I don't have anyone. Like
Oh,
all of our
yeah.
family, me and my wife's family, is back in India
Still
actually.
in India. Okay. So that definitely is a major crossroads. Can you share with us what is the difference that it has made in your life? You said it was a dramatic difference. Talk to us about some of those differences.
Sure. I mean, I would say that it definitely made me very independent as
Mm-hmm.
a person when I came here. Like, not only the culture was different, the language, the culture, and the philosophy, the mindset, everything was different. Like, and it is still different between, two different
Mm-hmm.
countries. And so I had to learn all of that and independently learn things through, and also learn how to cook when I was
Right.
here. and
Yeah.
and I'll tell you that when the like very first month of me here, I was so there is a huge difference in the exchange rate between the Indian rupee and the US dollar.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I had gotten a scholarship with the university, and when I came here, like it was very hard to get the mindset around this, but it might your listeners may not be able to relate to this, but like I would get a simple lunch, let's say, for $3, and
Mm-hmm.
that would be close to 150 rupees.
Wow.
And in India, you could get whole, back in the time, like back then, you could
Mm-hmm.
get whole weeks worth of meal in that much money.
Oh,
Okay,
wow. Yeah.
so I would get just one meal
Uh-huh.
for $3 there. And
And
it was
hundreds
like,
of rupees.
like
Yeah.
you could not get your mindset around that. So once
Mm.
I go for the grocery shopping for the very first time, and because we were
Mm-hmm.
stocking up our entire like student dorm, and we spend like $70 on grocery, me and my roommate.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad, it was on the credit card, and my dad was paying that one, and he was like, $70 for groceries. That's like, you times that with
Oh,
50 is 3,500 rupees. It's like, it's a lot of money. So
yeah.
that was, I would say that it made me, going back to your question, it made me very independent, and learn different cultures and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And after on top of that, once I graduated, I always wanted to go back and start a company of my own back in India. And in 2008 and 9, we almost sold all of our furniture, like me and my wife, to go
Mm-hmm.
back home. And we found out that we are expecting our firstborn, and we decided that it's very hard to move even houses when you're expecting, forget moving countries.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
stay here. And after that, we decided to stay in this country, and that's when I started investing here. And
Mm-hmm.
um, and I also read like Rich Dad Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant book from Robert Kiyosaki. That actually changed my mindset even further. And that was the start of my investing journey here in the US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I, you don't even, I don't even think about, going from country to country. I actually haven't been in that many different nations, but I mean, I did spend one day in Japan uh, back in the 1990s, and yeah, I can remember that that exchange rate was quite shocking in a lot of ways. Uh, there's quite a difference in those exchange rates. But there certainly is a difference in cultures, and you've talked a little bit about that, and certainly the exchange rate. I kind of wonder if that's not maybe even in some respects the more minor aspect of some of the cultural changes. What were some of the, I don't know, most dramatic differences between the U.S. and in India
You mean in terms of the culture?
in terms of culture? Yes.
Oh, there we can talk all day about that, but basically, I would tell you that right when I came to the university, Carnegie Mellon, right,
Mhm.
everyone in India, if you have, let's say your teacher, you're a student in a university, you would not call people or your boss with their names. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's always either sir or it's ma'am, like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, and you always have a certain level of, it's out of respect, like,
Hmm.
you do not call people's first name, and you just call them like sir or madam, like, in even in school or
Hmm.
universities or colleges and all that. So right after coming here, first lesson there was a first, like, orientation. Before pre-orientation, there was this guy who was teaching all these international students, like, the cultural differences. And one
Hmm.
thing he says, oh, you have to talk to everyone and call them with their first name. And I'm like, that was very hard to get used to be
Mm.
honest, in the like
Yeah.
first, I mean, we got used to it in first month, but it was a big change. And then second, change that I felt was the people, the cultural change was people in India are very, they are very close to their families, like when they are, growing up, they are all
Hmm.
together. And there's this, I feel that there was this family bond even with the extended family, uh, that was there, which I felt when after coming here, was not there initially at the time, but then
Hmm.
over time that changed. And I feel that family bond is here, it's even here, but it manifests itself in a different way
Hmm.
as compared to how it manifests in India or in that culture.
Yeah.
um, like, for example, kids are out of houses when they're 18. That doesn't happen in India. They always stay with the parents, and usually parents help them with their education, with the money and all that if they
Hmm.
have it. And and the kids don't have that mindset, oh, you know what, I'm going to be independent and go out and you know do everything myself, or even get a job when
Hmm.
in college. They don't think of things like that in India. Here it's actually very different. They're like, I want to go to the college, get a job, and parents actually want that for their kids.
Hmm.
They want them to be studying and getting their degrees and then go into the workforce.
Hmm.
uh, it's just a different thing, mindset I felt on that side. And there are everything, like from driving to how the electricity, the switches work, and everything is completely opposite between the US and India. Like, the
Hmm.
kilometers, and uh, everything was weighed in kilometer, like in kgs, and measured in metric system in India, versus it's ounces and miles here in the US. And
Right.
the electric voltage system, any electronics I got for myself didn't work here. It was 110 degrees, not degrees,
Oh,
110
yeah.
volts versus 220 volts there.
Oh,
um
yeah.
yeah, right. So like, it was a complete 180 degree, shift
Hmm.
in everything, uh when we came to the US.
Were you married when you came, or did you
No, I was single.
you were single, so you came all by yourself?
Hmm.
Well, I expect there was a lot of excitement in coming, but after you got here, I expect there might have been a lot of loneliness and homesickness. Did you experience that? Or
Oh yeah, initially
yeah.
in my very first year in the college, after our Christmas, like during our Christmas break,
Hmm.
I couldn't stay. Like everyone left the university. I was in
Mm.
university alone, right, in Pittsburgh, and I did have some room, like some friends staying back, but I got so homesick.
I'll
I
bet.
actually booked a flight to
Did
India
you?
just
Yeah.
for 2 weeks to go back home.
Well, that's good. You
And
had those resources. Yeah.
yeah, so I went back and came back after 2 weeks, and that was I believe out of homesickness more than anything. And
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
so
So,
yeah.
how was it going home and going back into your culture? How did it feel going back into your culture? Just, I mean, you knew you were going to be there just for 2 weeks, but what did it feel like?
No, it felt like I'm back home.
It
It was
felt good,
because
huh?
I was still my mind was still getting used to it, and
Mm.
there's a huge jet lag difference, and we were just
Yeah.
getting out of the exam mode, right? We were finishing off our
Hmm.
end of the semester exams, so I was completely out of lack of sleep, and I
Mm.
literally slept for first 3 or 4 days while I
Oh,
was there. I
wow.
didn't have to
Yeah.
cook. I didn't have to go anywhere. My
Yeah.
mom was cooking for me and all that, and so I slept for 4 days, probably during the daytime, and woke up during the nighttime and all that. So it was an experience.
I bet. And so then coming back to the US, you knew more what to expect. How did it feel coming back? Was there a
It
sense
was
of joy coming back, or was there dread in coming back?
No, it wasn't dread so much. It was like excitement to
Hmm.
learn new things at the university. And yes, there was this a little bit of feeling that of homesickness and living home again and not knowing when you will be back again.
Hmm.
So it was hard. Like, I basically didn't go for the whole year and went back again the following winter, like December Christmas break.
Hmm.
And yeah, no, I was uh, there was nothing like don't want to go back. I was actually feeling the excitement of coming back and learning new things and
Hmm.
at the university. Yeah.
Well, you went back for the holidays, 2 years there in a row. Uh, what are the holidays like in India? Is it a big deal? Is Christmas a big deal in India like it is here, or
No, it's
no?
not. Actually, the biggest holiday season in India is a festival called Diwali, which
Hmm.
happens in October, November.
Oh,
It
okay.
moves. It's not like a fixed date, based on the lunar calendar as opposed
Oh,
to the
okay.
solar. But yeah, no, the I was literally home when I was there for two
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I hate this, but we are running out of time. I've just really enjoyed speaking with you here. I have one last question, but before I ask that last question, can you share with our viewers and listeners how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. So they can actually reach out to me on my email. It's p at thegoldcollarinvestor.com. That's the name of the podcast that I run. And I
Okay.
also have a free report for them if they want to download. It's top 6 reasons to diversify outside of Wall Street on the website.
Okay. Great. Excellent. My last question is uh, all of us are going to leave this earth sometime. So, what would you like to have on your epitaph after you leave this world?
That's a great question. Like I have so many thoughts around that. But if there is something that I would want, there is that a person who cared.
A person
And
who cared? Okay.
yeah, person who cared and made a difference in many lives, whether it was as a friend, or helping them educate for certain things. A person who cared, who taught good things, and was around when needed. You know.
Well, just talking to you for the last few minutes here, you certainly do seem like a compassionate and caring person, and it appears to me you're living the life you'll be happy that you have lived when that time comes to leave here. So, any last closing thoughts for our listeners and our viewers?
No, I think what I would say is that, to your last point, that we are all here to serve our purpose, and that purpose is something, it's very hard to find,
Mm-hmm.
for what you're here on this earth for. And I'll tell you, based on my experience and based on all the books that I've read, that even though it's hard to find, but it's once you find it, like nothing can stop you from achieving
Mm-hmm.
that purpose. And it's just a soul searching effort that you have to go through.
It took me a very long time, and what I found is my purpose I never thought would be my purpose. So
Exactly.
serendipitous things do happen that are good throughout life.
Yep.
Well, it has been a real pleasure, and I hope we can have some future conversations and get to know one another even better. So, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Alan, for having me.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
tuning in to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors, brought to you by Steed Talker Capital. Steed Talker Capital works with both new and established investors nationwide, creating opportunities to flourish in all areas of life. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steed Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steed Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures great and small flourish abundantly. For resources to enhance your well-being through multifamily real estate investment, connect with us online at capital.steedtalker.com.